Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? You know, invariably, I've given this program to many of my schools and students across Texas. And you know kids, they would look at the first slide and they would think, Mr. Fortenberry, what on earth is he going to tell us about footprints? What does he know about footprints? He hasn't made a footprint in years. And they had a good point. In 32 and a half years to be exact. But I'm not talking about literal footprints. I'm talking about figurative footprints. Who we are, what we say, what we do, and how that impacts, influences, and touches those around us. It's a memory empowered, shared, and alive that lives on through those that we touch. And I'm going to tell you this morning that if you'll adopt a whatever it takes philosophy, attitude, and approach, not only will you achieve and obtain your own personal goals and objectives, but ultimately you'll help Invacare achieve its goals and dreams as you embark on this journey to embrace a new sales approach and introduce this new line of Cushaw wheelchairs, and they'll be a resounding success. So what does a whatever it takes attitude, philosophy, and approach look like? Well, I have a simple formula. I call it the 3 A's. Attitude plus action plus accountability equals success and excellence. First and foremost, we've got to be willing to embrace the challenges and adversity we face as opportunities and with a positive attitude. We've got to be willing to make those positive actions and commit to those positive actions with a I can get it done regardless confidence and faith and belief in ourselves. We've got to be committed to be responsible and accountable for our actions and our lack of actions, and we've got to make those actions a priority, and not just occasionally, but each and every day without exception. And it's the each and every day without exception that separates those organizations and individuals who achieve success and excellence from those who fall short. And make no mistake about it, I like to say that in terms of adversity, it's not a question in life of if we will face adversity, but more a question of when, how much, and how we'll choose to respond. And I like to say if life knocks you down 10 times, what do? You get up 11. If life knocks you down 15 times, what do? You get up 16. You must persevere. And remember this, we can't always outsmart and out-talent everybody out there, but we can always choose to outwork them. Okay, everybody stand up, because we're all going to be active participants in the program today. Everybody find a partner. And throughout the program today, many times I'm going to say, are you willing? And I need you and your partner to respond with a whatever it takes and a high five or a fist bump. And I want you to engage this exercise with a passion and intensity like your life depends on it. Because theoretically, it does, right? Because somewhere, someplace in this company, somebody is depending upon you to do your job so they can do theirs. Somewhere, someplace, a customer is depending upon you to get them the equipment they need to maintain an independent lifestyle. So we're going to practice right now and give away our first prize, and there's some whatever it takes t-shirts. So Brad, you ready? Or I forget who's tossing the t-shirts, but okay, Keith. So, you ready, Keith? Audience? Are you willing? I like that. Keith's got a tough job there. So, acknowledging our own personal constraints. I give him credit for that. That's one of my biggies. You know, I want to tell you a story now. And to tell this story, I need you to come back in time with me to the early 1980s. Labor Day weekend, 1984. Y'all can sit down if you want now. Labor Day weekend, 1984. Me and a good buddy of mine were doing what kids back then did, teenagers and college students did. We were cruising the main drag in Big Spring, Texas. And as we cruised the main drag in Big Spring that day, we saw someone we didn't expect to see. And the reason we didn't expect to see her was several months earlier, she'd been involved in an accident. She'd been drinking, and she had an accident and was paralyzed, and she'd been in rehab. So we got each other's attention, and we pulled over, and we began to talk and reminisce and catch up. And as we did, I just couldn't help but sit there and think, how sad, how tragic. So young, so beautiful, had her entire life ahead of her, and now what could she hope for? And I felt sorry for her. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for myself. And frankly, I'm not here to motivate you today. If you do anything with my message, convert it to inspiration. Because inspiration resides here in our heart and soul. And when it comes time for us to face adversity, and I just told you how I feel about that, you can draw on that to help you get through it. Motivation to me is temporary and short-lasting. So inspiration is the key. As my buddy and I pulled away that day, I turned to him and said, and these were my exact words, if that ever happened to me, I would put a gun to my head and pull the trigger. Exact words. Fast forward 10 days, September 12th, 1984. Beautiful, typical fall, sunshiny West Texas day. And at the time, I was dual enrolled in a local university and a local community college. And on this particular day, I had classes at the local community college. And I was really excited about them. I had some of my former high school classmates in there. I was excited about seeing them. And I remember that morning vividly. I was running out of the house and stopped at the fridge and got a drink of OJ, ran outside and jumped on my bike. And as I jumped on my bike, I grabbed my helmet off the handlebars. And then I turned around and took one last look at that beautiful fall day that was developing, and I thought, oh, what a nice day for a bike ride. Really want to feel the wind in my hair today. It's only 5 miles into campus. I don't need this helmet. And I laid it on the ground. Backed up my bike and took off. Now, I commuted into Big Spring on a small backcountry 2-lane road. And just prior to entering into the city, there were 2 very, very steep hills, 60% grades. And as I crested that first hill that day, I like to say I encountered a surprise. Literally, it was a car in my lane. Figuratively, it would be my destiny, my legacy, and my footprint in life. When I saw that car, 4 thoughts instantly jumped into my mind. The first was, oh no, I'm going to crash. This is really, really going to hurt. I could die. My next thought was I need to go to the right. Started trying to do that. Next thought, I need to hit the brake. No, there's no time. I need to jump off my motorcycle. Didn't have time to do really any of that, and 9 inches from being off my side of the road, I impacted under the passenger side headlight of that car. Caught my left leg between my bike and her car, yet still managed to throw me over 100 feet in the air. Ripped this hip out of the socket, and much of the bone and skin below my knee was just ripped right off. When I landed on my head. Rolled through a hog wire fence, cut myself to pieces, cut my ear in half and almost off. It was dangling by a thread, and bam, with my back into a telephone pole. Shattered my spinal column below my chest into thousands of pieces, which still reside there. My skull fracture, just over my left eye, across the top of my head to the base of my skull, was 1.5 inches wide at the top. My head was solid purple and bigger than a boy's basketball. Severe, critical, should have been fatal injuries. And though they tell me I was conscious at the scene, I have no memory of it. My first memory occurred at the local ER in Big Spring, Texas, Scenic Mountain Medical Center. And in the frantic chaos that those doctors and nurses were working in to stabilize me and get me out to the nearest trauma center as quickly as possible, I heard someone say something that I'll never forget. It was a male voice, but I have no idea who said it. But he said, "There's just no way he'll survive these injuries. They're much too severe. But maybe, just maybe, we can keep him alive long enough for his family to see him alive again." Whew. I remember thinking, are you kidding? These people are serious. They think I'm going to die. I can't die. I'm only 21. Wait, these people don't know me. I'm not going to die. I will live. I will live. I later found out they told my family, if you want to see him alive, you need to get to the hospital within 3 hours. My next memory occurred when I awakened in a dimly lit dark room. I was surrounded by machines that had all these lights on them that were beeping and buzzing and flashing, and it looked like they had hundreds of wires coming out of them, and they were all attached to me. I was strapped in some sort of strange contraption of a bed that rotated every 45 minutes, 180 degrees. My body felt eerily strange, like it had never felt before, and I was in intense, indescribable pain. And out of that pain and that frustration, I attempted to call out and get some help. And I couldn't get anyone's attention, and it seemed like I called out for hours, but it was probably a few minutes. And out of that pain and frustration, I reached up to those machines and I began to rip out wires, and bells started buzzing and beepers were beeping and lights were going off, and I was immediately surrounded by about half a dozen nurses. And one of them looked at me and said, "Do you know where you are? Do you know what happened?" And I looked back at her and I said, "Well, of course I know where I am, and of course I know what happened." She could tell that I was clueless, and I was, and she said, and these were her exact words, "Mr. Fortenberry, you've been in a terrible motorcycle accident. You're paralyzed, and you have brain damage." I looked back at her in astonishment, and I said, "Lady, I'm a little bit banged up, but I'm walking out of this hospital. And if you think I have brain damage, you're the one with brain damage." She laughed, the other nurses laughed, I laughed. And she said, "You know, we had you pegged as a fighter when you came in here because we've never seen anyone survive injuries this severe. But we just don't think there's any way there won't be some permanent effects." Could somebody kick the slideshow on?